2, 1, and we are live. Hi, this is Praios and I'm a professional gambler. Today we look into another video of Phil Galfond and he's talking about No Limit Holdem versus Pot Limit Omaha and how your game changes once you transition from NL to PLO. So let's get right into it. Or not. Okay. I don't hear anything. Why don't I hear anything?
Kind of learning.
Okay.
And,
Sorry
for
for that.
myself, it's been a long time since I played.
Matt asks,
Technical
I would be
difficulties.
interested in a video about how learning PLO might affect one's no-limit hold'em game.
That's a good question. And, for myself, it's been a long time since I played No Limit seriously. And so my kind of learning PLO as of late has not impacted my No Limit game because I don't have a No Limit game. I'll speak from my own experience.
Yeah, it's sort of the same for me. Don't have a No Limit Holding game anymore, but I played some for fun with some friends, and it always feels very strange when you just get two cards. Something is missing, and also like hand values are a lot different. So you need at least top two pair in Pot Limit Omaha to consider staking off, and in No Limit Hold'em often top pair is good enough.
PLO has helped me understand how to play more passively in a lot of spots. I think it feels very comfortable in No Limit to do a lot of protection betting and like thin value betting to then check back river, just to kind of make the hand easier to play. And PLO has taught
The good old bet for free showdown.
me not to do that. There's a time and a place, but PLO has taught me, the benefit of strengthening your check back ranges.
PLO didn't taught me that though. I think the concept of blockers that you could also use in No Limit Hold'em is what I learned. Though the blockers are often not that powerful.
And having board coverage on different turns and rivers, things like that. I think anytime that you study poker seriously, it's going to improve your other poker games, if not like immediately after you've gone back to that game for even a few hours. I think just any kind of study of especially theory and solver work kind of just solidifies concepts that apply across games if you're doing the studying reasonably well. Obviously, if you go from playing and studying No Limit 4 days a week to have 3 weeks of playing and studying PLO, and you go back to No Limit, you're going to be slightly rusty compared to where you were before you started that.
Yeah, at first I tried to play No Limit Hold'em and Pot Limit Omaha, but then at some point I transited to PLO only. It's also hard to stay on top of your game in two categories at once, especially if you also have other shit going in your life.
PLO study, but I think overall, studying any game is going to help your other games.
Steve asks, could you talk about transitioning to deuce to 7 triple draw?
What is it? I think that's a Q&A session. Can't comment on that. I think I played deuce to 7 triple draw like once or something, but yeah, no idea.
So I went from being a No Limit specialist to being strong at No Limit and PLO, being just good at PLO, to then playing some deuce to 7 triple draw limits for a while, because that's where some of the big games at the time online were headed. And that is actually a much different game than No Limit or PLO. So the transition from No Limit Hold'em to PLO was a little bit easier than transition from PLO.
I think transition from big bet games to how are the other things called, like the limit games, is always quite difficult. And people who come from limit games are always huge calling stations.
To deuce to 7 triple draw.
Even transitioning from No Limit to Pot Limit Omaha is hard, and I caught myself in the beginning to stack off way too light very often because hands just look very good, and compared to No Limit Hold'em, they also look very good, but in reality they are not.
Triple draw is, first of all, any limit game is much more mechanical than a big bet game. And actually, like speaking from personal experience, my natural tendencies.
Yeah, you can also often not fold anymore because, yeah, if you get to the river and a lot of bets got in, you always get such good odds that you feel obligated to call.
And strengths and weaknesses don't lend themselves very well to limit games, because my mind always goes to kind of the value of deception in the game, and making your opponent think you have something that you don't have, and the value of hand reading, putting your opponents in spots where they kind of make their hand more obvious based on everything you know about them. And in limit games, those things kind of don't matter so much, because if I've really tricked you into thinking I have something else, I might make one extra bet. And if I've got you super red, and
Limit games are such a bullshit. Although I think actually, No Limit Hold'em and all the big bet games were just invented by pros in the early days because they figured that they could make way more money from the fish if they can lose their entire stack in one hand. And yeah, that's also more adding a bigger skill factor to the game. So yeah, I think this was made in a predatory way in the first place. I mean, there are rumors that Doyle Brunson played a lot of Limit Hold'em, and then he was like, hey, I could make a lot more money if we remove this stupid limit and just make it you can bet whatever you want. And that was how No Limit Hold'em was born. Not sure if that's true, actually.
I'm almost positive you have a certain kind of hand on the river, and you bet, I'm still getting 9-1. So how certain am I? And if I'm 95% certain that you have a value bet, then yeah, I fold and I make a correct fold. But I didn't make that much money. It's not like giving me that much of an advantage. Whereas if we're playing No Limit Hold'em and you pot river and I'm 90% sure that you have value, now I'm making a fold and getting a lot of EV, because that's a call that a call that would have cost me a lot of money with the hands that I'm supposed to call with, etc. But I'm making a very clear fold. So in limit, it's a lot more about knowing the math behind the game. And while I consider myself strong with math, I was never the most studious player. I actually learned a lot by playing, and you can't do that as much in a game like Deuce 7 Triple Draw. So I actually did do a lot of math, and I think it's funny. I think now they have tools that can teach you, not publicly, or I mean, they have a couple of public tools, but I think some of the best players in the world own tools privately that tell you how to play Triple Draw. I never had one of those, and at the time that I learned it, I don't think people did.
Even more cheats. Yeah, but I can imagine that game like Triple Draw can get solved quite well, especially because of the limit structure. I guess that's true for all limit games.
Either, but I was just doing a lot of manual calculations, and honestly, spreadsheet work, I'm reasonably good with Excel, and I remember going and plugging.
Didn't thought that he actually would be good at this or put in the work. So yeah, we learned something new about Phil.
In, here's the range of hands that I think my opponent has. I'm deciding if I want to snow with this hand, which means pat a hand that's no good to represent that you made a good hand and bluff. And what's going to be higher EV, drawing to this hand or snowing with this hand? And so I plugged into a spreadsheet. Here's the range of hands that they have with these hands. Here's how often they improve to something, etc. And then how often I customized it so you could put assumptions about how they would play each of those hands, and then say, okay, well, if I think they're gonna.
Oh, this is very boring. I don't want to know anything about Triple Draw. I think this is basically that game, and you can. I think the only thing, because you might consider learning it, because it's in 8 or 7 game, it is a part of the game, and in addition to that, insane high stakes were going, but other than that, no games are going at all. I mean, not sure if that's still true, but it was at the time.
Fold with these hands, but call with these hands.
I think it was Gus Hansen was getting hunted, and some other fishy guys like Victor Blom also tried the game without studying properly. That's why the games were running.
It's more profitable to snow, and if not, then whatever. And so I was actually doing a lot of manual math, and it was harder than I'd worked at poker, at least with this type of studying. than I had before. But actually, I find that work in some ways, it's tedious, but because it's so exact compared to like when you're playing No Limit or PLO.
The thing with doing the kind of work he describes, you have to be very precise and don't make any assumptions that are bad, because if you do, it throws the whole calculation off and you might learn complete wrong shit. So better make sure that the ranges you put in are correct.
A couple of assumptions, like a small change in the
And
way that they're
assumptions,
playing,
obviously.
completely changes the EV of your
Yeah,
play.
that's what I'm
Whereas
talking about.
in Limit, that's less the case. And so, I don't know, I kind of found that work.
Yeah, okay, could be true that in Limit it's less of a factor. But yeah, in big bad games, it's definitely true that small changes often change completely what you are supposed to do.
Interesting, if time consuming and tedious. I found it pretty interesting and fun. And especially, I mean, personally, I have a lot of fun when I'm learning a game at high stakes and these games are running and the games seem pretty good. And if I can just put in the work and learn.
I mean, it's good for him that he can do this, but if I have no clue in a game, I probably wouldn't participate. And the thing also is, I mean, you cannot even learn this that well because you cannot try on lower limits. And he also said that no good resources are out there. So yeah, that kind of sucks.
Faster than my opponents, there's going to be value there for me. And so I found that motivating. And I think I did a pretty good job of, for a period of time being a top player at a triple draw, which I've never accomplished in another Limit game. So
was a top player in triple draw. Maybe he's just considering himself a top player in triple draw, but the other guys never bought that, and he was actually the fish. But that's just speculation on my part.
So that for me is quite an accomplishment.
All right, Phil, one final question from me, Thomas. So, when we talked about doing YouTube content, you've always insisted that day in the life stuff would be boring because you're a homebody.
Yeah.
So why don't we put that to the test? Here we are. It's the end of May. Why don't you walk through what you did yesterday?
Yesterday, okay. Good question. So yesterday,
I mean, it depends on the guy. I mean, not sure how many people would watch Phil, but for some people, they can block all sorts of bullshit and people will still watch it.
kind of unique because I came back. So last week I went on a business trip for 3 days. It was like a conference for Rush Street Interactive, which is a company that acquired.
He is right. That's very boring. But okay, let's give him a chance.
Run Once Poker. Got to meet a lot of very interesting people that I work with, including some that I'd already talked to a lot. But it was really fun. Anyways, I came back from that, and then my son and my nieces started their spring break, and so we spent 3 days with. I spent 3 days with family. So this was actually yesterday came after 6 days off, essentially from my normal routine and normal work. So I had a lot to catch up on. So I kind of started with. I mean, I woke up at 6:30. No, I woke up at 6:30, and I spent the first 2 hours.
He's a bit like me. He cannot talk in an enticing way and make things interesting. This so far is really boring.
Well, I mean, responding to some emails, but also kind of mapping out all of the things that I have to catch up on and what I want to focus on next. And so, okay, so what did I do? I ended up with. So I did that for a while. I did a short workout, and then I did.
What is he working out? Which would be a bit interesting.
Basically just an hour of catching up on more responding to messages and kind of boring stuff. really. Then I had a meeting with you. We launched a YouTube video, and then we talked about what we were going to record today. Following that, I had another meeting with a potential partner for Run It Once training that I am not going to share too many more details about. That took like an hour and 15 minutes. I stopped and had lunch. Then I updated my
Dude, you definitely have to work on your presentation.
like my Run It Once partners on that meeting, filled them in, and then I had a
And he's also talking in this monotone voice that makes you very sleepy. And he is a native speaker. He should be able to present stuff better than I am, as my my English literally is terrible.
another meeting with our CEO at Run It Once Training for about, I don't know, a little over 90 minutes.
No one is interested if it's 90 minutes or 60 minutes or 24 minutes, guy.
And kind of caught up on what I've been missing. We like make some decisions. I'm not super involved in the day-to-day of Run It Once training. So, my job is making videos, general company direction, and then vetting pros that we hire. But then everything else from a day-to-day perspective, the team without me, the team runs without me. So then I have meetings with our CEO, James, well, it varies, but when I have time and he has time, and kind of catch up on everything. And usually those are for like making bigger decisions. So he's kind of everything that's gone on in the last week or two.
Thanks God, it's only 1 minute left.
Here are kind of the things that he assumes I would want to have input on. So we did that for a while, and that was actually the end of it. Then
Please don't punish me for the most boring video ever. I mean, the triple draw thing was already not great, but we are approaching new lows.
That ended at like 3:30, and then actually it's still spring break for my son and nieces, so we went out to a park with them, and out to dinner, and then
His editor should have cut all that out.
home, watch TV with my wife and my son.
What did you watch? Give some details and some stuff that people might be interested in.
Went to bed relatively early. That's the whole boring day.
Okay. Looks like his life is even more boring than mine. And yeah, that's quite an achievement. Okay, Phil. You should not do this daily blogging, in my opinion. Also, don't necessarily talk about Deuce to 7 triple draw. Yeah, the rest, yeah, the no limit pot limit Omaha thing in the beginning was actually interesting. Yeah, sorry if this wasn't the most interesting video, but if you make it to the end, please like and subscribe for me criticizing Phil. Yeah, bye until next time.